going on, guys? Fiz here once again. So this is episode number 1 of my build diary for Physics Jug the Right Way. Patch came out. Basically the minion changes were depressing and not enough. I may still do that build, I may not, I don't know. I was looking forward to playing it, but yeah, 3.19 is the patch that just keeps on giving in terms of depressing patches, I guess, and hot fixes. Anyway, I decided to POV some jug stuff because I wanted to play Boneshatter again, but I can't make a 3rd or 4th build diary on Boneshatter Slayer, so I was like, I'll do it on Jug. Jug is like popular right now. Everyone wants to play the new Jug, and there's some cool stuff going on with the build. I'll kind of like breeze through it. It's pretty different, kind of, from what other people on the ladder are playing. I am using a Devouring Diadem, though this is just something that I'm testing right now. I just had one, so I threw it on because a lot of people are using it right now, and I wanted to see how it felt. It definitely has some pros and some cons, and I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with it, or if I'm going to go back to my old setup, which is just using an armor-based helmet and doing some other stuff there. The TLDR of, I'll get this out of the way at the very beginning of the video, I guess, for people who are going to ask this. Devouring Diadem basically gives you Eldritch Battery and a bunch of ES and reservation efficiency for things socketed. I have an Ashes, so I don't need to use an Enlighten. If you didn't have an Ashes, you would have to use an Enlighten with this. But basically, I threw all my auras in here: Pride, Grace, Determination, and War Banner. And because you're running Grace, you go Iron Reflexes. I think Iron Reflexes is generally a pretty terrible node. But you know, with Jug armor stacking, I think it becomes an acceptable use case. You'll notice that sitting still here right now on the end of my effective day 1 on the character, I'm almost at 100,000 armor. When you have all your Flasks up, you're at 150k armor, and then you have endurance charges on top of that. Very, very thick boy. So the cool thing about this build is simply armor stacking with the new Ascendancy node, which allows you to not have to itemize for spell suppression, which is really cool, I think. It's a breath of fresh air after the past year plus itemizing every character the same way in terms of defenses and base types and whatnot. It feels really nice to just not have to care about it, to be honest. But the difference is here between Devouring Diadem and the other setup I was using, which is just an Ezomite. Devouring Diadem will, 1, allow you to not have to use Elrion crafts since you have basically 300 mana. It will allow you to run Grace, so you can actually run Iron Reflexes and get way more armor. I guess it just helps with mana. That's basically the big things I was going for. It enables you to run Grace with Iron Reflexes and not have to worry about mana as much. Now, the alternative is just using an armor base. If you guys want to see what I was using until just a minute ago when I threw this on, was this, which isn't anything crazy, right? It's just a helmet with a lot of life and a good armor roll. It's almost got 1,000 armor on there. That's what I was using. And so the alternative there is that one will be more damage but less defense, basically, and you have to fix your mana issue. So it would make crafting your rings slightly more stringent because you would need open prefixes for Elrion crafts. So you'd have to get your res, your life, and your accuracy in order from those two, which shouldn't be too much of an issue realistically. But you would have to do that in order to run that setup because mana is a concern. Mana might still be a concern on this in terms of single target, because sometimes when I'm whacking away on bosses, I do actually get dangerously low there. So I'm not sure how this would actually work on like real bossing. It depends because of the variant that I'm using, because I'm trying to do the stun stacking variant with maces that I did last league on the Slayer, and not the axe version that you see people running. Anyway, and what running a pure armor thing will do instead of the diadem is just not using the diadem. Is basically, for me, crafting the rings will be a little bit harder, and instead of Grace, I get to run Herald of Purity, which is a 13.2% damage increase for the build, according to POB with my final setup. So it does significantly more damage at the cost of a significant amount of armor, to be honest. So in the end, I don't know what I'm going to go for. There is one additional caveat there, is that you do need to spend extra points to run Diadem. My tree is a little bit scuffed right now because I had to path for Iron Reflexes, which is 2 passives. And then I also had to grab double int nodes, which is 2 more passives. So what you could do if you didn't have an ashes is just, you know, run an amulet. You could run a turquoise amulet or just a pure gate. Is a gate the right one? The pure int amulet. And get all your int that way, but running an ashes, I obviously can't do that. So it's a little bit unfortunate getting my attributes. I'm gonna have to craft something at some point. I used all my int essences, but didn't get anything worth using. So, you know, that's that. Anyway, we'll do a map real quick, and overall, I wanted to do maces on this because it just feels way better in my opinion than running axes. I did axes the first 2 times I played Boneshatter, and then once I went the mace variant, it was very hard to go back. Simply because the mace one is just so much more fun, and I do, after playing both, really subscribe to the theory of like getting the big stuns helps with uptime on bosses and makes it way safer because they're just stunned the whole time and they can't move. And last time I played it to about halfway through 99 and still never dropped an ashes doing a boss rush Atlas strategy. So I never got to have, I could still stun like pinnacle bosses, but I could only do it when I was at like really high, you see my mana gets a little bit low, when I was at really high trauma stacks. So now that I actually have an ashes, it should technically be easier, but then also harder again because I'm playing Jug, which has innately obviously less damage than the Slayer. But there are some ways to get around that, and I will go over that soon on like Jug versus Slayer and the difference between the two. Yummy. I really need, oh nice. So the clear obviously could get way better via dealing more damage. My weapon isn't anything crazy right now. And then on top of that, as anyone who's played Boneshatter or any strike skill will know, the implicit for +1 strike is huge when it comes to clear speed quality of life. Obviously, I wouldn't call this clear speed bad. It's actually quite good clear speed, but in terms of Boneshatter's ceiling for clear speed, it is quite bad with how insanely fast you can clear with this skill. And I know Boneshatter is just, it's really, really, really satisfying to map on. Let's see if I hit it. I want to do it with these 3. No, no, no. Okay, well, suffering. All right, so that wasn't anything crazy. You can see the damage is a little bit low on the map boss, but again, this is the end of the character's day 1. He's been sitting in T16s since basically what I did was essence farming and low white maps until I got a onslaught chest piece, and then as soon as I got that, I went straight to T16s. There was no progression in Atlas. I just sat in like T1 to T3 maps, got my chest piece from Insanity essences, and then right into T16s from like level 80, whatever. So his damage is a little bit on the low side, but clears quite fast. And as soon as I can get some int on my gear and I can drop these nodes, it'll be looking a lot better. Anyway, we're gonna go through the passive tree first. And I have played around with a lot, like about 10 or so passives have been constantly getting moved around on the passive tree for me in my POB. And I think I've settled on something, and I'll kind of go over it here, but basically the crux of this, you'll notice a lot of people on ladder are playing Boneshatter on Jug. A decent amount of people are using the Devouring Diadem tech. Where I differentiate is that I'm using the Mace tech. I'm not going axes. Now axes are more damage. I'll break down axes versus maces now. Basically, axes at low levels of investment are just always better. There's no way to get around that. They deal way more damage baseline. You have access to way more attack speed baseline, which also means that you're able to get higher trauma stacks fresh out of the gate, which is, again, even more damage. On top of that, like early on in your Atlas progression or your character progression, being able to take Hatchet Master gives you free onslaught with, before you get your Insanity chest piece crafted. So there's a lot of cases to use an axe. Karn even used an axe all the way to level 100, and when he died doing Ubers, he was still using an axe even then. With the massive nerfs to crafting and the removal of recombinators, it has made the Mace variant a lot harder to pull off, at least in SSF. but it is still doable. And you do take a little bit of a damage hit, but there are some things that we can do to circumvent that on a jug, because you are innately getting what, like 40% plus less damage multi, which is a lot of damage to lose. However, there are pros to this, right? There are pros. So first and foremost, I guess we'll go through the Ascendancy choices. I really wanted to do Unyielding just for the clear speed, and if we're going true stun variant, being able to stack, what is it, like 6 or 7 endurance charges is a crazy amount of stun duration. I really wish I could fit it in, but unfortunately in the current iteration of the game, you can't. You just can't. It sucks that that's the case, but you can't do it. 70% plus endurance charge, or stun duration from endurance charges would make your AoE pulses on Boneshatter the size of the sun. Is it completely overkill? Yes. Is it necessary? No. Would it feel really good and look really cool? Absolutely. That, paired with all the extra AoE you'd be getting, like an extra 35% increase AoE, your Boneshatter pulses would be this, like, literally the size of the solar system. I imagine it would feel really good. However, can't justify running it. I tried everything I could, but ultimately it would be very suboptimal to do so. So what are we running instead? Well, basically the first node that you're going to be looking at, and what I took while leveling, is Undeniable. What does Undeniable give us? Well, it gives us a flat 500 accuracy, which is nice. It gives us 1% increased attack speed per 150 accuracy rating, which you're going to be looking at around 6,000 to 6,500 accuracy on the course of the build. So it is quite a bit of attack speed. And then also gain accuracy rating equal to twice your strength. Currently my strength is quite low. It's only about 350. You can get this up towards, 500 to 600 if you itemize for it. But that's what Undeniable does. And that is what allows us to run Precise Technique. Now, this isn't a gain over the Slayer variant or anything, but it does give us a lot more damage than we otherwise would. If Precise Technique wasn't a thing, I wouldn't consider this viable. So it is, that 40% more damage multiplier is very nice. The second node that I took in Cruel Lab is Untiring. This is 40% increased life regen, and this is effectively, to draw a parallel here, it is our Overleech. It is our version of Volpact. With stacking, insane amounts of armor, with all the self-damage we deal, basically Untiring is always ticking away for an insane amount of regen. And the harder you hit yourself, the more you regen. So it scales, basically. The higher your trauma stacks get, the more you actually heal, which is really cool. The really cool thing here, too, is that it lasts for 10 seconds. So it is actually quite nice. So, like, if you're bossing and you're hitting the boss, you're hitting the boss, you're hitting the boss, and then you have to jump away or the boss moves, and then you get hit by an ability after they jump away, and you get hit by something, and you get chunked, Untiring will, top you back off. So it is, in a way, like Walmart Overleech. It's pretty nice. And once you get to really high stacks of trauma, the regen on this is absolutely insane. It is crazy high. Moving on from there, taking Unbreakable. Now, this is the new Jug node, the new one, and it is what it effectively allows us to not itemize for spell suppression, which has been the meta for itemization in the game for over a year now. It just, like I said at the beginning of the video, it is a breath of fresh air to not have to worry about spell suppression and just put armor item bases back on my loot filter. Just, hey, look at that, pure armor glorious plate. I can pick that up and I'm excited about it. It feels great to actually care about more than one base type. Anyway, so what this does is armor received from body armor is doubled, which is really nice, but 8% of armor applies to cold fire and lightning damage taken from hits. So it is only hits, just like armor does, but this allows you to, like I said, kind of circumvent spell suppression because it effectively is going to do the same thing. Anytime you're getting hit by anything physical is just not, honestly, it's not going to deal any damage to you. You get so much armor and you have endurance charges. Your physical damage reduction is, in a lot of cases, a true 90% across the board. Like, I know there's a large misconception in this game, and I don't blame anyone for not understanding this, especially newer players. This damage reduction that you see here, the estimated Fizz damage reduction being 90%. This is 90% for a lot of people on a lot of builds, even with very little armor. It's because the estimated Fizz damage reduction here is for like a normal white mob hitting you. So it doesn't take a lot to hit that. It's a very low amount. So the estimation that it's giving you is very inaccurate because armor, the amount of effective armor you have is basically pitted against the damage of the hit being dealt to you. So the higher the hit, the less damage that it's actually reducing. So, you know, on lower armor values, for most builds, right? Especially on the hybrid meta of armor evasion bases. Whenever you're getting hit by like an actually decent sized hit, your mitigation is very, very low for that hit. And, you know, the biggest reason people are running determination and stuff like that, the armor is nice, but one of the biggest reasons is it enables you to run Molten Shell, which is the best guard skill in the game, like 100 times over. No exaggeration. So, you know, stacking all this armor up, actually getting very close, even on like end game pinnacle bosses, like we're talking like Shaper Slams and stuff like that, Cirrus Meteor, stuff like that. You can almost hit 90% PDR with Flasks up, and with a Molten Shell up, you tanking a Cirrus Meteor. No problem, actually. I think for normal Cirrus, I could, with my Flasks up and with Molten Shell up, I could tank like 3 or 4 of them before dying, according to POB, which is actually crazy. And this node, Unbreakable, actually helps a lot with that because the Cirrus node is actually split. It's 25% physical, 25% fire, 25% lightning, and 25% chaos. And as you can see right here, I only have 3% chaos res. So if I get that up higher, I could probably tank more than 3 in a row. Not that you would ever need to, but it's cool to see stats that tanky, right? Someone told me, I don't know if this math is correct because I haven't checked it, and I don't care to. But someone told me that with Soul of Steel, which is 1% max res, where is it here? 1% all max res, so 76% resistances, and 100k armor, it is the equivalent of 90% all res with no spell sub. Which in itself is very good. However, with this build, we can push somewhere between 150 to 200k armor, and we also get 80% fire res, all res, and 78% of the other two, which basically means we get well above 90% all res. So build is incredibly tanky. We also have, again, just armor by itself, which will do, like I said, it'll mitigate like all the, you know, physical damage you're taking, in addition with endurance charges, because endurance charges are basically just a flat 4% phys damage reduction that can never be reduced by the phys hit. So if you had no armor but 3 endurance charges, you would always reduce 12% of that physical hit, regardless of how big it was, whether it was 10,000 damage or 1,000 damage. With 3 endurance charges, you would always take 12% off of that, if that makes sense. All right. So that's the Ascendancy and why we're doing all these things, and Unbreakable is what kind of enables all this, right? I will also note that this is where the synergy for a lot of the stuff around the build comes from. We can go pure armor stacking, which is, you know, it allows us to really lean into Boneshatter's trauma stacking and be able to get away with that. I guess now is where I'll go over the, like, where you can kind of make up the damage that you would be losing from going Jug over Slayer. Now, you'll be incredibly tanky. Honestly, you're going to be more tanky than you would be on a Slayer, like, bar none. But there's a damage difference, as you would expect, right? Going from a Slayer to a Jug is a massive damage difference, especially when Slayer gets a crazy cull on bosses and whatnot, right? Now, here's the thing. On this build, you can actually run the Lab Enchant that gives you a chance to get double trauma stacks. Now, in my experience on a Slayer, even endgame geared, once I passed like 25 stacks of trauma, I would start to chunk myself quite hard. So if I ever got like up to, you know, when you pop Berserk, throw the banner down, you have your adrenaline, all that during a burst phase, and you get up like 30 to 32 stacks, like I'm chunking like half of my HP per attack. Now on a Jug with, you know, full armor setup and everything, and with a little bit of Fizz taken as elements, and also a, you know, chest piece rolled with Fizz damage reduction, which I don't have yet, but I plan on getting. You can roll your trauma stacks way higher, also because of Untiring scaling so hard with self-damage, or Boneshatter, right? All these factors together allow you to run much higher trauma stacks without killing yourself. So you can actually go for that lab enchant. Now the downside is obviously I play SSF, so I would have to farm that lab enchant. So who knows if I'll get it before I stop playing the build. However, the option is there. If you want to go for it, it can very easily help branch the gap that you have, you know, with Slayer in terms of damage, while also maintaining your crazy survivability that you get from Jug. It does suck a little bit that it's locked behind a lab enchant, but like I said, that is how you can bridge the damage gap. Moving on from there, this is the tree currently. So, you know, typical pathing for life, down into Warrior's Blood, going up through Heart of the Warrior, Born to Fight. Very good node, extra good on Jug since we get strength, and strength, you know, benefits us with accuracy. Right now I have versatility. I do want to spec out of this. In fact, I could spec out of this right now if I didn't need the intelligence, but sadly I still need the intelligence. So until I get something better crafted, I'm spec'd into this. I do hope to be spec'd out of this later on, because I do need the passive points. From there, down towards kinetic impacts. Now, this is just really important for Boneshatter because it gives you a bunch of stun duration and reduced stun threshold, especially on the stun stacking variant. Those are the most important stats you can get, so you want to get it everywhere you can. We're taking the two-hand mastery for 15% more stun duration with two-handed weapons, which is going to give you... and this is the best thing about Boneshatter, honestly, and why the Mace variant feels so good. You get so much stun duration and reduced stun threshold, and stun duration actually scales the AoE of Boneshatter pulses. So not only does it improve your single target because you're stunning things, which makes it safer, one, and B, you have way more uptime because the boss isn't moving around and doing things, it's just sitting still. But it also improves your clear speed because your AoE is getting way bigger. So it's a double whammy. It feels really good every time you get more stun duration, you notice it. Pathing on from there, it's just prismatic skin. Right now I'm running the mastery for extra chaos res and Ellie res because, you know, just filling holes in my gearing right now. But I will definitely spec out of that once I, you know, solve my chaos res issues. Path up here for the easy jewel socket, basically just life, some resistances that I need, and global fizz damage. That's the biggest reason I'm running this. End game, I need 2 jewel sockets. And I need to roll them for basically life and impale chance, which isn't too hard to get. From there, master the arena, bravery, and art of the gladiator. These are typical nodes. I will say master the arena feels really good to get on a Jug because you don't get the free +4 strike range on that a Slayer gets. So as soon as you grab this, you'll notice. Destroyer here, also really good node. It gives you attack speed, which is more trauma stacks, damage, which is damage, and then stun duration, which is again AoE and technically single target. Moving on from there, down through Golem's Blood into Iron Reflexes. You don't care about Iron Reflexes until you're running Grace, which won't be until pretty late. I'd say 90 plus. From there, pathing over, you know, precise technique is precise technique. As long as your accuracy rating is higher than your HP, then you get 40% more attack damage. I will say here, I think in the past I had some questions on this. It needs to be higher than your unreserved life. So you can see here that I have some of my life reserved with the Arrogance Precision Tech. I need more accuracy than my unreserved life. So basically the 5,000 life there, not the 4,700. Pathing down through thick skin, which is just life, and then sadly I had to grab the 2 int nodes. And I have rib cage crusher anointed. Depending on my tree, I may manually path this or not late game. Basically, this is not the highest damage anoint you could go for, but early on I like it, and it's more clear speed, so I'm not going to complain about that, right? From there, on the left side here, obviously path through Champion of the Cause into Bannerman. This is just, you know, typical mana reservation stuff for this side of the tree, and then going up through Soul of Steel. It's a ton of armor, max res, good Ellie res as well, and armor mastery for mana reservation on our determination. Now down here, the Tribal Fury, which is just the strike nodes. You get one melee strike range, pathing on the left side. Don't really care about the right side. Who cares about splash? And with the mastery for, you know, 30% increased range on your strike skills. Pathing to the right side, you go through Bastion Breaker and then grab the Fizz mastery for impale on hit. And then pathing through Wrecking Ball, and then also grabbing the mastery here, which is increased armor per red socket on min-hand weapon. I just don't have it right now. I had to unspec it to grab all of these stupid int nodes. But you do want to grab that relatively early on. And this is really good. Wrecking Ball is so good for this because you get a lot of damage and attack speed, which is really nice, but you also get 40% increased stun duration, which again, anywhere you can get it is very good. Now, why impale? Well, basically, I'm running the same tech that I did on Sunder. This technically isn't as good as it was on Sunder, but it is still very good for clear. You'll notice when you don't have it. And in a lot of ways, it's better single target than it was on Sunder. So running 20% chance to impale here, and I think 10 there, and oh, so this is 30. So I have 50% chance to impale. And we're running that with Impaler. Basically, we run up to a mob, we hit them, the Boneshatter pulses will go off, and basically it'll guarantee that they're at max impale stacks because only one monster out of all of them needs to get impaled, and then they're all impaled, and then the pulses will overlap the AoEs, and then everything takes basically double damage for that hit. So it makes clearing very smooth, especially early on with my kind of crappy weapon. This is, again, something that later on, when you do bossing and stuff, you would unspec this for bossing. But early on, while mapping, it's actually probably just a damage increase for the most part to take this. With 50% impale chance, I would have to do the math on whether this is a DPS loss or DPS gain, to be honest. Because effectively, what happens with 50% increased impale chance is we're having, like, on average, like, 2 impales on them versus having, 5 impales on them every 4 seconds. And this isn't as bad for single target as it was on the Sunder build because Rage Vortex hits like 10 to 12 times a second, which means that as soon as you put this on, it's gone. Whereas Boneshatter, you don't have an ability hitting that fast, right? Like I'm attacking at most like 2 times a second with everything popped. So you're not gonna like instantly extinguish the Impaler node. And our hits are a little bit bigger than it would be on Rage Vortex, because Rage Vortex makes most of its money from hitting a lot very quickly instead of, bigger hits more slowly, which in this case would be Boneshatter. Moving on from there, Spine Cruncher. This is a very, very good node on maces. So we have our stun duration, reduced stun threshold, which is a very important stat, and then 60% increased stun duration on enemies that are full life. Very, very good for mapping. And then the mastery you'd want to take here is Chill on maces. It's just, as you can see right now while mapping, everything is either dead in 1 hit or permanently stunned. So there's not really a reason to take this quite yet. From there, Inexorable. This is the goated node when it comes to Boneshatter. It's what makes Boneshatter really, really good, because you get a ton of armor pathing through here. But not only that, 50% increased armor while stationary is very strong. In addition to 25% chance to gain endurance charge when you're hit, you are always self-hitting, even if you're running axes and not mace tech. So you will always have endurance charges. From there, Juggernaut. We even path through the small node here. It's a bunch of life and armor. Harpooner, like I went through earlier, Impale. Increase effective impale, and then the 30% increase effective impales you inflict with 2-handed weapons on non-impaled enemies. This is what makes this better for like general mapping and clearing than say merciless skewering, because when monsters are not impaled, this is going to be a lot stronger, because that 30% increased effect is a lot of damage. I think a good way to showcase this is if you go into POB and you just mouse over impale effect, this 6% here, it'll be a very it would be like a 2 or ish % damage increase probably for the build. And then you can imagine if you had 30%, right? And an additional 10% from the small node. It gives a lot of damage while clearing. Very good quality of life to just 1-tap packs and keep moving. Pathing through Barbarism and grabbing the Life Mastery for flat 50, and the Life Mastery over here with Bloodless for the 10% increase. Finally, we get to the Mace nodes. Mace nodes are really good. You're going to path through the bottom side because you get stun duration here. The top side gives 8% increase AoE, which isn't as much AoE as the stun duration here, and we get 20% per node here, which is really good. Skull Cracking is, again, reduced enemy stun threshold, reduced stun threshold, reduced stun threshold, and then finally we end on Bone Breaker, which is just a lot of damage and increased AoE, which is nice. So that's basically the whole tree as of right now. I have decided on this character to try the Ironwood tech, which is where you just spend 5 passive points pathing down to Panopticon. Now I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't feel good on bosses, basically the only reason you take this is so your totems live long on bosses. If I still find that my totems are dying, I'm just going to instantly spec this out and go back to what my original tree was. But I figured I would at least try it. I don't have a lot of faith in it. I should probably go watch some bossing footage on Karn on the Ubers and see how long they lived. But basically, you path to Ironwood because you get, from these 3 nodes here, you get 60% increased totem life. They get 30% physical damage reduction and 30% all res. And then this extra node here is an additional 10% totem life. And then Panopticon's right there, so you just take it for the damage, right? Now, I do want to say here, don't anoint Panopticon, okay? If you... Anointing Panopticon is like pure POB padding. It is always going to show you in POB that this is the best anoint you can get, but this is absolutely padding, and you do not, like, just go look at my Sunder bossing footage on, I think, my last YouTube video that I uploaded, and you'll see that very quickly that totem uptime is optimistic for you to take this and actually have it pay off in terms of the damage. Though, with Ironwood, we'll see. If it feels good, that's cool. I honestly hope the tech works. I haven't had a lot of faith in it, so I haven't tried it until now, but I'm going to try this when I do bossing, and hopefully the totems live, because upkeeping totems during boss fights is the most cancerous thing in the world for Melee, and it's the #1 thing I would instantly delete from the game if I had Chris Wilson's powers for 5 minutes, right? Simply because, like, micromanaging totems aside, the annoying part is you throw the totems up and then the boss will typically use an AoE ability that instantly kills them, and then you spend over half the fight just kind of babying totems and not actually worrying about dealing damage or the boss. It's just very disruptive to the way Melee feels to play. It's extra worse on any build that uses both Protector and War Chief, which a lot of current meta builds do for Melee. Anyway, so I'm going to try the tech, and I'll report back on whether it feels worth it or not. But that's currently where I plan on spending some points there. And then once I'm fully bossing, I'm going to spec in a Merciless Skewering, grab Impale chance on my gloves, and grab 2 Jewels with Impale chance to cap my Impale chance, because it is a massive damage increase while bossing to have capped Impale chance. And that's going to be the deal for bossing. But for general mapping, which is what is going to be most of your time spent on Boneshatter, what I'm going to be doing is just running Impale with 50% chance to Impale, as you can see from the tree. Now, my endgame anoint will depend heavily on where I spend my passives and if I decide to stick with Devouring Diadem or not. So first and foremost, the easiest thing to anoint here would be Weathered Hunter. This gives, first off, it's very cheap. So early on, you can run this. As soon as you get to maps, it'll help you with resistances, and it'll help you with precise technique when you don't have accuracy on your stuff yet. But it'll do just that, right? It gives you a bunch of accuracy, it gives you Ellie res, and because it's giving you accuracy, it is also in some ways giving you damage because you get more attack speed per accuracy rating. You also can't just trust the POB numbers on this because it is only accounting for the attack speed increase in terms of the damage it's giving you. But realistically, attack speed is more important on this build than POB would lead you to believe, because more attack speed means more trauma stacks. So, you know, the more times you can attack a second, the more trauma stacks you'll get, and every additional trauma stack is a 4% more damage multiplier at gym level 20. That's one thing I should note. Right now, my gym level is only, well, it is 20, I guess. Now it is because of ashes. I forgot about that. But if you're mapping, there is a very large difference between your gym being level 19 and level 20, because when you go from level 19 to level 20, you get a 3% more damage, more multiplier per trauma stack to a 4% more damage multiplier per trauma stack. So that is quite a big power spike for the build, usually. So yeah, anyway, small tangent out of the way. That's why you would run Weathered Hunter. And I may end up running this if I stick with Devouring Diadem. Or maybe even if I swap off to make gearing easier on the rings, since I'll have to run Elrion crafts. I'm not sure. We'll see. But that's a potential option. Ribcage Crusher is another one. Like I said, this one is probably just the pick for mapping if you don't need Weathered Hunter to give you the accuracy and the resistances. Simply because it gives you attack speed, which will help with clear speed. It'll give you AoE, which will feel really nice. And some damage, right? And then the best anoint, probably in terms of pure damage for Jug, is probably Butchery. Simply because it's very similar to Ribcage Crusher, except it trades out some of the damage, or some of the attack speed and damage to give you just more increased damage here. Instead of 6% increased attack speed, we have 5%, but we get 25% increased damage and we gain strength, which strength translates into accuracy, which helps with, you know, getting accuracy for the build, but it also will give you some attack speed there as well. So butchery is probably the best, but overall the difference between all three of these is honestly going to be pretty negligible. So just take which of the three is most appropriate for your current situation. That's my opinion. Something else you can do, if you don't want to run an onslaught flask, silver flask, what you can do early on is anoint graceful assault until you get your insanity chest piece crafted. This will give you that onslaught on kill with some onslaught effect, and also the armor and evasion rating during onslaught. It's pretty good considering you'll have onslaught up basically the whole time while mapping. So that's also something you can anoint if you wanted to. Anyway, that's everything for the passive tree for now, subject to change. We'll get into the gear. Basically, Devouring Diadem, it is what it is. I got a crappy roll. I got strength and dex, which is okay since I'm getting a bunch of accuracy from the strength. But it could be better. I would prefer to have a resistance roll on this, I think, more than anything else. I can't think of any other veiled helmet mod that I would want right now, but whatever. I wish I got like a you know, like a cold chaos unveil or something like that. Just one of the resistance unveils. It would be a lot better in terms of like gearing. It'd be a lot easier, but yeah, whatever, right? I did get a pretty high rolled Devouring Diadem in terms of the energy shield. That's important because energy shield is our life, so make sure you quality this if you're running it. In the chest piece, I'm using a glorious plate here that's 6 linked. This is what I got from a chains that bind turn in, so it's only at level 80. The cool part is I don't care about it being eye level 86 because I don't care about spell suppression. Hey, so all I did was hit this with a few insanities until I got something good. I got life, tier 3 flat armor with an open prefix, 2 bench on percent armor, with the onslaught on hit being, you know, just from the essence. It rolled lightning res, and then I closed my eyes and slammed with an exalt and hit T4 fire res, which is pretty cool. Now, basically, the percent increased armor is actually more EHP than both a percent life craft or a fizz taken as fire and lightning craft according to POB. So that's what we're running. So at 20% qual, we have 2100 armor, which with our Ascendancy node is giving us 4200 armor. Now there is one small caveat with this build. You're going to want to definitely abuse Hillock and Fortification to theoretically 30% qual all of your items to get as much armor as you can out of them. But you can't just put Hillock and Fortification and run hideouts to 28% qual everything. I would say, though, you're probably going to want to at least run one Mastermind to 30 qual the chest piece since it's doubly as effective. So in some ways, you could think that extra 2% qual is actually an extra 4% qual, which, you know, when you're dealing with like 2,000 to 3,000 armor, that extra 4 qual can make a decent difference, right? But yeah, I haven't done any of that yet. Like I said, this is basically the end of day 1 on the character. But that's the chest piece. On to the boots. The boots are just okay. I definitely need something better. Running T2 life with tier 1 move speed. Again, really good at open prefix. No, I think you're gonna, on every piece, you're gonna want to roll at least percent increased armor. Ideally, you want flat armor and percent increased armor, but on a lot of pieces, that's not realistic. The only piece I think that's actually super realistic on is the chest. Otherwise, on the gloves and boots, you're going to be giving something up. I think it is least realistic on the boots simply because you need a move speed craft. Now, you may be wondering, Fizz, why are you not taking Chill Immune like you normally do on your builds? Well, that's because Unstoppable, that action speed cannot be modified to below base value and movement speed cannot be modified to below base value. Basically, anything that is a modifier to our action speed or our movement speed, we're immune to with this node. So things like temp chains, freeze, chill, stuff like that, you'd be completely immune to it. Petrify also, you're immune to that as well, because that is actually a modifier to movement speed or action speed. So because of that, we don't have to care about that. We can just get a bunch of movement speed on your boots. What you can also do if you don't have the oils or you don't want to anoint graceful assault early on is you can just benchcraft on chance for onslaught on kill on your boots, which also gives you move speed as well. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there. In the suffixes, I'm running just resistances, and I managed to hit life regen rate. This has pretty good synergy with Untiring, though I'm not targeting it. I just happen to hit it. Again, I'm not targeting it on the implicit either. It's just I had like one Ichor, I threw it on, and that's what it hit. So I just have a ton of, you know, life regen on the boots, but it wasn't intentional by any means. On the belt, I've got T1 life and open prefix for a max roll, armor and evasion rating, flat craft. Reduce enemy stun threshold with 2 resistances. I wish the chaos was a little bit higher, but it is what it is for now. You can get this by using... Do I have any left? I don't have any left. Yeah, I don't have any left. It's one of these. I can't remember which one it is, but there's an essence that gives reduced enemy stun threshold if used on boots. There's another essence that gives you increased stun duration if used on belt as well. I may have said boots a second ago. I meant belt. So you can do that. Either one of those two. Reduced enemy stun threshold is going to be a million times better than stun duration for bossing because of the way stun works. But for mapping, if you wanted to do stun duration, you could do that instead, and that would give you bigger pulses. More fun, hee hee. But maybe like ideally, if you didn't need resistances, you would get both. Moving on from there, we have gloves. This is where I'm getting a lot of my accuracy. Right now, I just have T2% increased armor, benchcraft on life with a T2 cold res roll, a T5 lightning res roll, and T2 accuracy. And still no good implicits. Overall, probably the weakest piece I have. They do have 550 armor on them, which is really nice, but I don't like that I have to benchcraft on life. I don't really want to use an exalt or anything crazy on these because I can definitely make something better, but it's decent filler for the time being. In my ring slots, I'm using a unveiled ring that has T1 life on it, and then 2 dead prefix rolls, but it has a unveiled fire and chaos res, which is really good, and then T2 lightning res and T2 accuracy as well. My other ring has it's running an amethyst with T1 life, an open prefix for mana cost reduction, and then fire res and accuracy with a open suffix. And then I've got an Elrion craft on there. I'm actually I'm not sure if it's necessary. It kind of felt necessary. I'm still deciding on Devouring Diadem. that's my final feelings on it, right? Moving on from there, obviously running in Ashes. I finally hit a max qual Ashes. This took me 6 divines, I think, so I finally hit it. Cool. My reservation went down, and I don't care about the gym XP gain at all. But that's all the gear right now. On my flasks, I am running, as you normally do, CB removal on an instant life flask. Jade with a increased armor during flask effect. Granite, and because I have armor effect on my Jade, I would prefer to have evasion effect on my Granite. However, I just haven't hit it, and I don't have the alterations for it right now. Reduce effective shock on my Quicksilver, and reduce effective curses on my Basalt. So normally I don't run Basalt, but in a pure armor stacking variant of the build, basically I want to get as much as I can. This would go up a lot higher. I have 12 alts. We can see if I hit it real quick. Go for no. 2 more. Okay, well, not successful once again. But you can see here while standing still, throw all of my flasks up, and I have 150k armor with the flasks active. Now, if I had increased evasion on this flask, it would be even higher. And the Jade flask is obviously because we're running iron reflexes, so all evasion becomes armor as well. You may be thinking, wait, Fizz, you always say you need a quartz flask. You need phasing while mapping. You're not running phasing. Why is that? Well, 2 reasons. 1, I'm effectively immortal while mapping outside of degens. And 2, I do have phasing. It's just in the form of a Hypnotic Eye Jewel, which is a % chance to gain phasing on kill. It's not as consistent as having the flask, but it fills the slot decent enough for now. I also have evasion and life rolled onto this jewel, which is pretty good because that evasion is armor for me. It's not my endgame jewel, but it's good enough for now. With that out of the way, we'll move on to the gems. So like I said, in the diadem is where you're going to want to have your auras. So I have Warbanner, Grace, Pride, and Determ. In our chest piece, we have Anomalous Boneshatter linked with Ruthless, Fortify, Brutality, Melee Fizz, and Endurance Charge on Melee Stun. This is pretty important. Definitely qual this as soon as you can because it gives stun duration, which is again clear and single target, and it gives enemies reduced stun threshold. Very important support. Aside from that, buy Anomalous. Anomalous gives at 20 qual 20% reduced enemy stun threshold. When you have an Ashes, it's 50%, which is crazy. In my boots, I have, you can't see it because it's off the top of the screen, but my Vol Molten Shell with Warlord's Mark, a level 1 with a cast when damage taken, and Berserk. Berserk is not part of the cast when damage taken setup, it's just in my boots. So I am running currently a 211 setup for my cast when damage taken. And in my gloves, I have Ancestral Protector, multiple totems linked with Maim, and then Ancestral Cry. It's just off on its lonesome. In my weapon, I have Blood Rage, Leap Slam, linked to nothing, Frost Blink, linked to nothing, Ancestral War Chief, linked to nothing, Arrogance, and Precision. So that is what is reserving my life, is to give me a bunch of extra accuracy. So currently, I'm at 6,000 accuracy, and I'm only at about 5,000 life. So I have a lot of wiggle room there right now. End game, I'm probably going to aim to have somewhere between 6,000 and 6,500 accuracy, but it'll swap around because right now, obviously, I'm getting a bunch of accuracy from versatility, so I do still have accuracy that I need to itemize for. This is one thing that definitely needs to change. I need to get blue sockets on other pieces of gear and move all my reds here once I grab this mastery, so I can have 60% increased armor instead of you know, 30% that I'm getting right now. Technically, it's 50% because I'm getting evasion from Blood Rage and Precision, but I would like to have them all red. And I believe that's everything with the gyms. I've gone over just about everything, I think, at this point. I don't know how long I'm going to play this character. I just wanted to play Boneshatter, like I said, and I decided to do Jug because I've done Slayer a million times. If I wasn't a streamer, I'd probably just have done Slayer again. But unfortunately, I need content for you guys. So I decided to POV this build out, and it actually looks pretty good. In the end, assuming you get the helm enchant and everything, I think this is a, well, in general, I would say this is probably a more well-rounded build overall when pitted against Slayer. I will say that Slayer early on is going to be easier to run in terms of gear, like low gear, because you get more damage from the Ascendancy, and it'll probably feel better for mapping just because you get so much raw AoE from being a Slayer, 60% increased AoE to be exact. So all the duration, the stun duration, everything I have right now, you could still have on a Slayer as well, so your pulses would be quite big. Yeah, I mean, technically you could get that same AoE if you took Unyielding. It's just currently in PoE, I can't justify. If Unyielding was a 2-pointer, I could justify taking it, but spending 2 labs on it right now, I just can't. There's no way to fit it into the build. If Melee gets super buff next league and you don't have to go Precise Technique on every build, maybe you can give up Undeniable to go into Unyielding. Yeah, I don't know. There's just no way to fit it in. It would feel really fun, and you would be able to stun endgame bosses for like 8.5 years with it. But there's just, I just couldn't. I tried so hard, but I couldn't justify putting it in. Anyway, I think that's gonna do it. This is I would say a pretty long one, but honestly, this is just common for me at this point, right? This is just normal. A lot of work needs to be done on the gear. I'm not sure how long I'm gonna play the character. We'll see. Just depends on what's going on. You guys let me know, by the way, who's down to do the Mary Fizmas Private League, because I'm thinking about doing it a lot earlier, especially with no Gauntlet this league. Maybe just playing around with that, and maybe we add some new rules or change it up a little bit this league just to add some flavor to stuff, because obviously 3.19 is a little stale, to say the least, currently. So there's still plenty of builds that I kind of want to do, if I get around to them or not. I don't know. We'll have to see. I currently just sat down to record this video while I'm in queue for Wrath of the Lich King Classic, because that's what I want to do for a few hours tonight. Maybe do a late night stream or something. Anyway, yeah, you guys let me know if you enjoyed the build, if you thought stuff was cool. if you thought it was whack and you think I'm stupid, or if you don't care about any of that and you want to know more about the Merry Fizmas Private League, just let me know. And yeah, what are you guys up to? Who's still playing? The numbers look pretty low. I'm still having fun, but I have had some like motivation issues in terms of like doing like YouTube content and stuff like that, and streaming. I've still been playing the game on and off, but just not like giant 10 to 12 hour stints that are normally required for me to do a full stream of it, you know? So I am still having fun, but there's like that lingering thing in the back of my mind constantly of like 2.5 months, bro. 2.5 months, bro. Like it's like existential crisis for PoE, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm having fun. Everything's fine. I got some stuff to do. And then there's like a little voice in the back of my head that's like, what, can you do it for 2.5 more months? And then I like, oh crap, no. Anyway, there's still like at least 1 or 2 trickster builds I want to try out. There's some other stuff there. Lightning Conduit didn't really impress me. That's why this build kind of came out. Lightning Conduit is very strong. It's definitely overpowered. But I didn't find it very fun to play, to be honest. So I just didn't really want to pursue it any further. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks a bunch for watching. Made it all the way to the end. Let me know if you want to support me. Thumbs the video up or thumbs it down. Give me some constructive criticism down below in the comments. And maybe consider following me on Twitch. I do stream there almost daily. Consider subscribing to me on YouTube and clicking the little notification bell so you get notifications anytime I upload a video. You can join my Discord where I'm always available to help with builds and give advice, general PoE stuff, anything there. I'm available basically 24/7 anytime I'm not asleep, and it's all for free. And maybe consider following me on Twitter so you can hear me aimlessly scream into the void about things that probably nobody else cares about. All my tweets are typically PoE related. Just a thought. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Hope you enjoy it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.